There's a timeline that many women grow up believing their life should follow. Graduate,
Yeah.
build a career, meet the right person, get married, have kids, move on to the next milestone. And if things don't unfold in that order, it can feel like something has gone wrong. But what if the real question isn't what's the next thing I'm supposed to do? What if the better question is, do I actually love the life I'm living? My guest today, Carrie Penna, has spent most of her adult life asking exactly that question. And it blew my mind when I first heard her say it. After losing her father when she was just 11 years old, navigating major life changes across the country, and then building a career in organizations focused on helping others, Carrie has learned that alignment matters way more than timelines. Today, she leads one of my favorite organizations, Seacoast Soul Models, which creates spaces that support young women's mental health and development. She's also been, where are we at? Try that again. She's also been incredibly open about a deeply personal decision, which includes freezing her eggs at age 37, which challenges the shame and the silence that often surrounds women's choices about their own bodies and their own futures. Carrie's story is about something many women quietly struggle with: letting go of the life you think you're supposed to have and building the life that actually feels right to you. And along the way, she's discovered how to create a life she truly, truly loves. Carrie, I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me, Robin. I'm like starstruck. I'm like, oh, and your words. I mean, like, it really sometimes I think having them echoed back to you when you
Yeah.
said, like, what, things I've mentioned and shared, it's like, oh, yeah, that is all part of my story, all part of
Yeah.
my cloth that are woven into the fabric of my life. And sometimes I think we don't stop and celebrate ourselves enough.
Agreed.
And hearing you say that as well, I'm like, yeah, I did. I
I
do.
love the
Yes.
hell yeah.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Before we dive into what I find really just fascinating, the different aspects of your life, I thought I'd start by just asking you, since so much of what you do is spend time thinking and working with younger generations of women. What do you think younger women are carrying that your or our generation didn't have to?
I feel like the obvious elephant in the room is around social media,
Mm,
and, there is just this comparison, and people have different access to you, and that is, I think a lot of things always come back to soul models for me, but I think that is one of the reasons that we start and end that program as a phone-free zone, because they're carrying that person got tagged in that, they're in that Snapchat story, they're included, and I'm not, or that filter made that person look a certain way and I don't look
mhm.
that way. And the comparison in middle school happens across the board, and that's definitely something I experienced. But now it's comparison of things that aren't even real.
Right.
And there's a lot of that that I think is being carried. And so yeah, I'd say that's a major, major thing. We actually we do ask them, when they sign up for soul models, we say, "What are some of the challenges, experience, what are the things you'd like us to know about that you're up against right now?" And making friends and things that haven't
Mm.
changed, like the making friends, the girl on girl kind of somewhat cattiness or difficulty, and wanting to be like everybody else, but also be your unique, amazing self. So it's a beautiful
All
blend,
the
right? All
better.
those things.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And especially I think that, well, my belief is that women at any age, and we'll isolate it to women, deal with the social norms and comparisons that come through with social media. It's these formative years for these girls
Mhm.
and how it just infiltrates their brain.
Yeah.
But one thing that it was unique to your development and your experience, unlike many, hopefully many young women, was that you lost your dad at a really early age, that middle school age. So when you look back now, How do you think that experience influences the way you approach your decisions today?
It's interesting. I saw an interview with Reese Witherspoon
Mhm.
recently, and she was with Dax Shepard, and she was talking about. She was like, "I'm speaking to the men that are dads," and she's like, "I want you to remember that." How you show up and the language you use and the way you treat them, you are creating an imprint on their brains, how they will walk through the
Yeah.
world, how they will accept behavior and treatment, and how they see um, what their future partners will be and kind of went along those lines. And so for myself, something that I feel like I always had a lot of sadness around was when I felt like I was choosing relationships that maybe weren't the healthiest for me
Mm.
or where I probably not probably I for sure deserved more, like a lot of those things. I had a lot of guilt around that because I was like, "Oh gosh, like, it's because I after losing him at 11, it was really that time where you start being interested," or I
Yeah.
started, my sister, like, being interested in the opposite sex if you're straight, and, I didn't have that to look at. Like, I knew that my parents had this, like, beautiful, strong, amazing relationship, but I also looked at it through the eyes of a kid. And
Yeah.
so once I became older, I was like, I don't know what a healthy relationship's supposed to look like. I don't know what effective communication in a partnership. I didn't have those things
Mm.
to model. And so I think that was a struggle for me, and like my learning curve was through trial and error, which is how you land at 40 years old and still be single. But yeah, it was that was tough for me.
Yeah.
That was a challenge going from 11 and on without having that foundational person and my dad to really build up those pieces of, and my mom trying to wear both those hats, which is
Mm.
challenging. So, yeah, it's been a
Well,
journey.
you talked about trial and error. How did you and I think that a lot of women go through that, and especially when you're thinking about either women who are in their 20s and 30s and still trying to figure it out, or women who are in their 50s and older and are now all of a sudden finding themselves single either because of, the death of a spouse or the divorce from a spouse. So, besides trial and error, how did you use trial and error to start to create more of a strategy for yourself? Or maybe strategies isn't the right word, but a learning opportunity for yourself.
Yeah, I think for me, like the most important piece of my learning was surrounding myself with strong relationships of humans. Like if
Mhm.
I wasn't finding strong supportive relationships with men, then I was going to surround myself with strong supportive relationships with women or with friends, or if it wasn't going to be romantic and that wasn't feeling like somewhere that I was feeling really particularly empowered to have in a supportive, healthy way, then I have built an insane structure of women that are in my corner. And I think that also, because when you can't remember for yourself
Mm.
what you deserve, what you need, what you want, your value, all those things, sometimes we question ourselves. Having people mirror that back to you, be like, you are amazing, you do deserve, like all those things. And I was reading about why women live longer than men a lot of times, not always, but and it's because we support ourselves with a beautiful community. We really prioritize relationship in our female friends. And so I think that's what I was able to really feel strong and grow my value and my worth in those relationships.
But how did you do that, Carrie? Because I know we talk about networking and making those connections, but I gotta tell you, and I have the joy of knowing you personally, you your networking isn't about just creating a network around you. It is about making connections with those people. If a woman is, especially a younger woman, is trying to do that, how would you recommend she start, or what should she do that would make it as effective as what you've done?
Mm, I love that question. I think one thing I got many, many moons ago, I feel like I've shared this with you. I used to work at San Diego Hospice in
Yeah.
my other life, and one of the therapists there, just a colleague, not in therapy, he was sharing with me that like we are innately animals. Like, we came from primates. Like, we have that. We say, like, listen to your gut, but really what that is that was our survival instinct
Mhm.
from, whenever. I'm not a historian, but, from back in the day. And so when we're interacting with people, being really aware of, if you walk away from somebody that you've interacted with and you feel either drained or a little bit anxious, or you don't feel, yeah, you're like a little uneasy. I'm not sure what it would be in someone else's body, but for mine, if I don't feel it's authentic, if I don't feel relatable with them, if I don't feel comfortable, if I don't feel like they're genuine, that's totally fine. But it's not someone who I'm going to pursue really mostly any sort of relationship with, because I there it will be somebody else who feels aligned. And so whether it's your person who's going to handle your insurance, to your facilitators, like for me, or someone who is payroll or whatever it is, it's like you can find people who are going to fill your cup and are genuine connections. And so I would just encourage younger people that if you're interacting with people and it feels really off or really
Mhm.
uncomfortable, to listen to that and to thank you next. Whoever says that, Ariana Grande, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Thank you next.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Some of what you're talking about is unfortunately built into a societal script for women because we're supposed to give people a second or a third attempt, give them the benefit of the doubt, be nice. And you've
Hmm.
talked very openly about your displeasure at, at best, the
Yes.
societal scripts for women, whether it's the pressure around marriage or kids or the next thing. When did you first start questioning that narrative or pushing back against that narrative?
I think I've been in my role with soul models just about 8.5 years at this point, and I think I always felt it. I was raised, after my dad passed, like my mom and my aunt and her wife, and just like the amazing women that are like super strong. I get to watch them as they model that. But then it was a whole different ballgame as I watch my nieces grow up, or when I'm at Soul Models and I
Mhm.
see young humans that are having that experience. It really like, ooh, should have asked you this question. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yes, you can.
But, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, it just last week, we incorporated a new piece of our programming where we're talking about financial literacy,
Oh,
and,
awesome.
I was like, "Okay, folks." I was like, "I know that it's, like, not as fun as when we're making candles or when we do our bracelets or when we do, like, the other pieces of the puzzle that we really incorporate into soul models. Here's why this is important, and I need you to hear me. Because as girls, as women, we start out with less already. In
Right.
New Hampshire, we make, I think it's 72 cents to the dollar now. It might be 75. I was like, but it's
Oh,
not the
yeah,
same. We make less than men. So if we're going to start out with less, we need to be more prepared, have more knowledge, have more preparation so that we are ready and set up for success so that we can, and like kind of sharing that. And for some of them, they were not aware of that. And they're 11, 12, 13,
right.
14, but they did not know that that is the way of the world at this moment. And so they had a lot of questions around like, why is that? How come? Like, how do we change that? And it's hard because I feel really motivated and driven to make life different for them because that's some bullshit, anyways. But it is also like, I don't think we're doing them a service by keeping it quiet. I think that's what people have
Mhm.
wanted in society, whoever they are, but I think keeping women uninformed, unaware is how
Yeah.
we get to where we are now. So, education, 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 education.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying, I mean, from for you at least, you're surrounding yourself with these powerful, amazing, supportive women. Then you're doing this work with younger women, girls, and it's a constant feed into your life of, yes, the inequities and the challenges and then solutions to all of those. And I wonder if that's might be part of what younger women need to hear, that it's a balance of both support and education in order to start to change some of these societal norms, if not collectively and overall, at least for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I hear at every school we're at, we're from the Berwicks down to the Oyster Rivers and the cooperative middle schools and the Barringtons, and we're all around. Every single school we're at, we hear they say they don't feel heard. Like,
Mm.
I've shared this, I'm not really here, like, a teacher hasn't, they're not feeling like their voices are being respected or heard. And so that is a challenge as well, where, you know, of course, there is the reality of, like, you're 11. Your voice isn't going to have the same weight in certain situations and certain, you know, um, and it's still so important to make sure that they at least feel like we care and that we give a shit, that they're feeling hurt, concerned, frustrated, excited, thrilled, proud, like all the things. So I that's what I love that Soul Models. I feel like we're part of their village because we work super closely with the school counselors and other faculty, and they're busting their buns to just
Mm.
really, you know, get all of the other pieces of the puzzle in line. And then at home, whether it's foster parent, mom, dad, grandma, whoever's raising them, they're doing the clothes and the food and all the things. So then we get to come in and we could hear a different
Mhm.
perspective, a different piece of what's going on. And together, maybe this reminds me of like when you and I were in Leadership Seacoast together and we were talking about ACEs. And I feel like it's so like a
Yeah.
buzzword of these negative experiences that kids have that impact their lives in a way where they have higher increase of experiencing homelessness or substance um disorders or this or that, and it's like, okay, all valid, all important. Let's also talk about having just one positive
Yes.
person, one adult to be in their corner. Actually, and I should get the stats on this, but it's like it reduces their risk significantly.
It does.
And there's 10 facilitators that they get to experience this whole model. So, yay. Like
Mhm.
I just like I'm on a one person mission, Robin. I feel like as we're talking about this, that's what it makes me feel like. It's like I'm not doing it alone. I have an amazing board and colleague Sarah, like so I'm not alone. But I feel like a crusader of I will be damned if we keep moving in the direction where young girls, young people don't feel heard.
Yeah, and again, I love, as you know, the work that you do and Soul Models does for these girls, but I think it's really generalizable to any woman, and in
Mhm.
particularly the women, in Gen Z and some of the younger millennials where it is about having that support, and you're right, that one person. So as you talked about earlier, if you have a connection with multiple women who are supporting you and letting you share your voice, that's the power. And learning how to do that from a younger age, whether it's middle school, whether it's in your 20s, as long as you start it whenever you can, that's where the strength comes from, and
Yes.
having that platform where your voice is heard, because so many women still don't have that. Now, I know you have done so much to promote the voices of girls and women. For women, particularly women starting out and when you were in your 20s and with Lululemon and some of your earlier experiences, what advice would you give them or wisdom you would share for them to develop their voice? How did you do that?
Start small, do it in safe spaces
Okay.
where you can flex your voice with. For me, it would be my mom or my sister or my aunt, where I could say, I don't like that, or like, I don't want to go to that thing, or like, I don't want to wear that, or whatever it is. Like, start with like little things that don't feel as overwhelming because it's a muscle, right? And so you have to like flex that muscle
Agreed.
and use it and build it up. And like if you were a weightlifter, like you're not just gonna like power clean 500 pounds. Like you're gonna go in and you're gonna take a weight that you're like, I know I can do this one, so I'm gonna build up my confidence with this.
Love
So
that.
do it in spaces where you can build up your confidence because anticipation is almost just like worse. You know, you like
Yep.
create this story in your head and you feel super anxious about it. And then it it's not that bad. And I do also credit back in the day working for Lululemon because you mentioned them. I do think that I mean, now this was probably 15 years ago, but they did a lot of investment in their managers as far as performance and people management. And so I had a really cool opportunity to do a lot of trainings around communication and
Mm.
important conversations and how it should feel and what it should look like. And so I had a lot of practice from that and working in a team. And so, yeah, like practice it with people that you feel comfortable with and, uh, and just remember that the right people and the people that you're going to carry with you are gonna receive that well, and just feedback, another Lululemon phrase was feedback is a gift,
Mhm.
and so it is a gift to be able to say to someone, "Here's how I'm feeling. Can I share with you a little bit more about that?" And make yourself a script. I'm a script girly because I maybe this is my, like, just how my neurodivergent brain kind of but I'll the wheels will fall off for me with anxiety if I don't have something, so write it down, have a
Yeah.
journal, do a little brain dump, and make sure that you know, okay, so if I had a conversation, I'm like, I need to talk to Robin about X. And when I walk away from that conversation, the one thing that I want to make sure that Robin knows is this, and the rest can go however. Then write that one thing down. And then nothing is the end, right? I could
Mhm.
always like, we could hang up the phone and I could be like, damn, I didn't love that. And then I can call you back tomorrow or be like, "Hey, I slept on this. Can I have a take 2?" That used to be a phrase we used
Yeah.
to use a lot. Like, "Can I try again?" I really have some other things that I felt like I left on the I, you know, want to put all my cards on the table. Can I try again?
Love that.
Like, we're human. Like, we're gonna fuck up. Like, it's okay. Like, that's
Regularly.
okay. You know, like, that's all
Yep.
right.
Yeah. When I mentioned Lululemon, you mentioned San Diego Hospice. We've certainly mentioned Soul Model several times. That's a lot of change, and certainly from Lululemon to some of the other non-for-profits, it seems like really extreme change. Most people see change as very scary, but
Mm,
you don't use that to direct your life. You tend to go from more of that perspective that I mentioned in the intro about loving your life.
yeah.
Where did that come from, or how did you develop that?
I think, you know, as morbid as it is, I do think it was conscious or subconscious of losing my dad at an early age. And then probably this was more like right after college, I lost my grandparents who were
Mhm.
super formative. Like they stepped in after he passed in like a really big capacity to support my mom. And so losing them. So I feel like I had this weirdly morbid mindset where I'm like, couldn't get any worse, you know, like you've
Oh, yeah.
already lost someone. That's like the most significant and hard change you'll ever have in your life is really, ooh, sometimes even after all these years, I could still cry when I think about it.
Of course.
But like, there'll be no harder change you need to make than to reorganize your life and the pieces around loss.
Mm,
So, yeah, after losing people and needing to make a change to be able to move forward and continue your life, I'm like, I've done that. I can change a job.
mhm,
You know, like I changed how I look at the world. My heart changed how
mm,
I accept people and don't. And it's a driver. Like, I like to look at that and say, like, would my dad or my Grammy or whoever, like, would they say that, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of your life," and everything you do and everything you change is getting you closer to what you want. So if you're in a job and
mm.
especially this goes back to how you're saying, what would I say to younger people? If you're in a job and you're like, dang, like, this is not it. Don't not change because you don't know what is it, right? Like, I think people think like, well, I need to know what's next before I leave the this. If the this doesn't feel good, try something else. And then maybe that's it. Maybe it's not. And then you just keep trying until you find what it is. But you can't stay in something that you know doesn't work. And that extends to relationships, in my
Mhm.
opinion. That extends to jobs, that extends to homes, that it's like really like everything that you can think of. Like, you really shouldn't be staying somewhere that doesn't feel good, even if you don't know what the better fit is.
Hmm. From everything you're talking about, Carrie, the trust in yourself, the trust in that, whether we call it intuition or gut or whatever it might be, was clearly there for you. Was that something that you developed? Or do you think these external experiences like loss created that in you to trust yourself?
I think it's mostly how my mom really allowed my sister and I to be, where her focus was always around, "Are you happy?"
Mm,
Or yeah, it was never like, "Oh, well, how much does that job make? So maybe you should take that one." Or, um, yeah, in friendships, in jobs, in school, in really in all areas, it's kind of how do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel happy? Do you feel relaxed? Are you feeling safe? Are you um yeah, so I never felt pushed or um yeah, I feel like creating that space, and so I think hopefully other kids and other people have that dynamic and that experience at home, and if they don't, I think that also shapes how we try to show up as soul models for people, because if you
mhm,
aren't getting that at home, because I recognize that not everyone has that. So it's like, then we'll be your safe space, and that
right,
always, like, in the end of the 10 weeks, we ask the girls, like, "Can we have some feedback, or can we have your thoughts?" And when people write down that it was their safe space where they
mm,
can just be and, um, and not feel judged, I'm like, "Oh,
yeah.
yes."
That's it, right, and
Yeah,
again, just keeps feeding back to that idea of creating the support network around yourself regardless of your age, because if
yeah.
even if you didn't grow up with it, you can build people around you to help create it whatever time in your life,
Yeah,
and the
it's actually crazy how it's still occurring now. Like, I felt like,
I
'cause I'm
know.
43, so I think when I first started this role, I think I was not fully aware of, like, obviously so much work has been done, and how much I just wasn't aware how much work still needs to be done.
I know,
And, that I try not to let that be daunting, because that just feels exhausting, so I try to focus on
right.
small things, the wins,
Mhm.
the comments where girls are sharing about their experience, because, yeah, it feels really like an uphill battle sometimes.
Yeah, I get that. One of the ways that you trusted yourself around what could potentially have been an uphill battle was
Mm,
the decision to freeze your eggs at age 37, which
yeah.
I gotta tell you, Carrie, when I first heard you talk about it, I was blown away because, that
Mm,
upper end of Gen X, that wasn't a thing, and your lower end of Gen X, you might have been one of the first women who just, at least seemingly, comfortably talked about it. What was the internal conversation around that decision? Because I don't believe we have this conversation a lot, and
yeah.
gosh, I stress it so much, whether it's to my daughters or younger women I know that, like, okay, you first of all, you don't have to have kids. Second of all, if you think you want to, you don't have to rush everything else to make that happen. So if you could talk a little bit about that, I'd so very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I think first off, was really embarrassed initially, where I felt like
Mm,
people would see it as a flaw, or a failure that I hadn't been able to find a successful relationship or find the partner. And so, like, I had to settle for freezing my eggs because I couldn't
Oh,
find a man type of thing. And then I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I
right.
need to reframe this for myself. And it's I saw something, like, on Instagram the other day where it was like, "When are we gonna start celebrating the people that didn't panic, get married in their 20s, and now they're,
Yeah,
like, dealing with divorces?" And so it's, like, similar to that, I'm like, celebrate the people who didn't panic, get pregnant because they with the wrong person,
right.
and then are in a situation that doesn't feel good either, you know? And so I just felt like, okay, if I start talking about this and someone thinks I'm weird or someone thinks that's embarrassing or someone thinks I'm lame or whatever the weird self-talk was, is like, then those aren't my I don't really care because you aren't my friends. Like if you don't
Right.
get it, then like again, thank you next. But the benefit of talking about it is there's going to be somebody who doesn't have the support system that I have that was like, "Oh shit." Like, I now have a resource or I didn't know like, I did not know that the first step is as easy as a blood test. I thought it was like a crazy invasive, like, internal ultrasound where, like, I don't know, I was overwhelmed, and so I was like, "I wish someone had shared with me years ago that I could get a blood test to see where my hormones were at," and when I did finally talk about it, one of my dear friends had some of that testing done and was at levels where it was going to be incredibly difficult for her. They actually said she was not going to be a viable candidate to freeze her eggs.
Mm,
And so I'm like, well, shit. Like, this is bonkers that simple education, a simple conversation could have changed the trajectory of someone's whole life. And just like a simple conversation. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I know some of the things I've said maybe sound like it, but I do think that in the world we live in, I think there's a large section of, and I'll say it, I'm going for it,
good for
Robin. There's
you.
a large section of men who are just like happier that women don't have a voice. And
Right.
so, and if you look at healthcare for women, it's a fucking dumpster fire.
Yep.
And I the I just think it's so wrong. And so if I can use my voice, and I'm very lucky that we live in New Hampshire and I have the rights that I have and I have the access to the healthcare that I need. And I mean, but I will on top of that, like, it cost me an arm and a damn leg to freeze
Yeah.
my eggs, and it was a significant financial hardship for me, and so, I think that's also something that I find to be disgusting, is that, you know, what are we trying to, like,
Mhm.
bankrupt someone? But, like, if I was a dude and I needed
Punish.
Viagra, like,
Yeah.
not a problem. And
Yep.
so, it's just if we say nothing and we challenge and we don't challenge what's going on, nothing's ever gonna change.
Agreed. Agreed. When women are being punished for the choices that they
Ugh,
should 100% have, it yeah, you say conspiracy, I say reality. So,
yeah. True.
kinda where we're
Yep.
at.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So someone's always we talk about this as role models too, where like when boys speak up in class,
yeah,
they get labeled as, you know, the smart one and then if it's a girl, a lot of times she's a know-it-all.
right,
Or
bossy,
if they're taking yeah, if there's a guy he's a leader or he's
right.
taking like he takes action. And then for us, it's she's bossy or pushy. And so I they I don't even feed these words to them. I ask them and it's definitely what we're still hearing. So it's
Mhm,
still a conversation. We still need to create spaces where girls and then like they need to see us speaking up so that they know
right,
it's safe and comfortable to do so as well.
agreed. Absolutely. So, if there's a woman out there listening and she's feeling anxiety about timelines and relationships, maybe even fertility, What would you want her to know?
Call me. No, just kidding.
What I
Gosh.
know about you, Carrie, is you take every single call if that happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my door is always open. Um, what would I want them to know? Just take a pause, take a deep breath, and start some research. Start looking into some information, and then set up the people that are going to be at your board of directors. Who are your board of directors? Who are your people at your table that are your support system? And then you'll be locked and loaded.
I love it. Carrie,
Yeah.
I end every podcast with just some rapid fire questions. Is it okay
Oh
if I
gosh,
ask you them?
I'm nervous.
Now I don't believe it. All right. First one might be easy. What's your go-to power woman song?
Olivia Dean has been my jam
Love
lately.
her. Love her.
Yeah,
I have a
yeah,
whole playlist of Olivia Dean, Ray, like all these new
yes.
soulful female artists, and I love it so much. So
Mhm,
that's awesome. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. What's one life hack or tip that you use that you would tell every woman you know?
Offload the things you hate.
I love that one.
Delegate, delegate, delegate. If there's something that is miserable and it's not in your wheelhouse or your skill set or you don't want it to be, that's fine. Delegate.
What's one of your favorite books?
Oh, this is weird that this just popped into my head. Matilda.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Probably because we were talking about my dad a lot, but I
Mm,
remember reading that with him. So, yeah, that's
that's
one
a good
that's
one.
coming to mind.
I like that. What's one belief you had to unlearn?
Well, this is like a whole other podcast. Um, but that the size of my body and what I look like is the least interesting thing about me.
Yep. I'm just going to leave that where it is. I love that. And then what's something you do every day to take care of yourself?
Hmm. I'm a big writer. I'm a big journal note taker. So like every day I do like a little brain dump. I get myself organized and I make a list. I'm a list lady to the nth degree.
Me
So
too.
I make a list of things that are going to make me feel grounded and um yeah, complete. So list it up.
Did you do that in your 20s?
No.
Mm,
I've always like had a journal that I've been sporadic with, but the list I feel like has been an evolution for me.
okay. And
Yeah.
then the last question, what's next for you?
That is, I mean, what's next? It's a great question. I feel like buying a new home.
Good for you.
Yeah,
That's
I want some
exciting.
land. Yeah,
Love it. Well, when you
build my
do, let me know so I can be there to celebrate with you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for today and this space and this forum. It's invaluable. I appreciate you a lot.
And I do you, my friend. So thank you so much, Carrie Penna, for offering all your experiences, for being vulnerable, but especially that gift of wisdom for the women who are building their lives and this world. I'm going to add some more details about where to find you and about soul models, all the wonderful work you're doing in the show notes so that listeners can follow you. And certainly to all of you who took some time to be with us, take what you heard today, carry what matters, and just pass the wisdom forward. Because when women speak, as Carrie said, the world changes. Thanks for listening and see you next time on That's What She Said. Follow That's What She Said on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. That's What She Said is created, hosted, and executive produced by Dr. Robin Buckley. Our Senior VP of Productions and Content Strategy Consultant is Dr. Tom Grabowski. Jordan Gilbert is our show's Marketing and Creative Content Specialist. Senior Producer is Quentin Sukup. And remember to keep the conversation going. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're a woman who's lived it or a woman who's building it.